Welcome into Mock Trial Masterclass, your guide to controlling the courtroom. I'm Luke and I want you to be a mock trial master. Let's talk about how you can make that happen. In my opinion, the hardest thing to do in mock trial is give a rebuttal. That's when you, as a plaintiff or prosecution attorney, gets back up to give the last word following the defense's closing argument. Why is it so tough? Well, I think the reason rebuttal is so hard is that you really can't prepare for them. You don't know what exactly the other side's going to throw at you, and while you know the basic facts of the case from having studied it yourself, you don't know what the other side's theory is going to be. You don't know what their main points are going to be. And so doing a rebuttal is not something you can prepare ahead of time. But even though you can't prepare the content of your rebuttal ahead of time, what I think you can do is go into a round with some principles in your head to help you give a great rebuttal. And that's exactly what we're going to go over in this video. I'm going to give you 4 rules that you can apply to your next rebuttal if you get the chance to do one, to make it mock trial master level every single time. It still is going to be tough because you're still not going to be able to prepare the content, but at least having these 4 rules will give you a framework to work from so you're a little bit prepared, at least up here. So, you ready to hop in? Let's do it. Rule number 1 of 4 for rebuttals is that you must give one if your competition allows it. Now again, if you're on the defense side of things in most mock trial competitions, you're not going to be able to give a rebuttal because that's a plaintiff or prosecution privilege. But if you are on the plaintiff or the prosecution and you have the chance to give a rebuttal according to the rules of your competition, you don't have a choice. You may technically have a choice according to the rules, but I'm here telling you right now, if you want to win championships, you don't have a choice as to whether you give a rebuttal. Trust me, judges notice when you don't give a rebuttal, and they're going to be asking themselves, well, why didn't they give a rebuttal? What was going on there? So you need to give one. Now, to be able to give a rebuttal in virtually every competition, that means you'll have to have enough time left over to give a rebuttal, which means that as the closing argument attorney on the plaintiff or prosecution side, you need to be thinking about that time element when you're giving your speech. Here's what I recommend. If you are in a tournament that has a 5-minute limit on closing argument and rebuttal, I would leave around 30 seconds for your rebuttal. If you're in a tournament, maybe in college, that gives you a little bit more time, like 7 to 9 minutes for your closing argument, I would leave between 45 seconds and a minute for your rebuttal. I think those are good time frames to shoot from because that'll give you enough time to give a quality rebuttal without giving you so much time that you're either robbing from your initial closing argument or taking way too much time and rambling during your rebuttal. So how do you make sure you don't run out of time in your closing argument? Well, guys, I've discovered a foolproof plan for never running out of time in mock trial. Here it is. You ready? If you don't want to run out of time, stop talking. Right? It's really that simple. If you're giving a closing argument as the plaintiff or prosecution and you know you're going to have a chance to give a rebuttal, you've got to stop talking before those time limits we just talked about. No, you don't just abruptly stop talking and sit down in the middle of your prepared speech. But if you're looking at the clock and noticing that it's getting close, start wrapping up because you've got to give yourself a chance to have a rebuttal. It's not an option if you want to be a champion. Rule number 2 for a great rebuttal is that you only get 1 point to make. Now, again, if you wanted to, according to the rules, you could get up there and talk about as many things as you wanted so long as you had the time. But again, what we're wanting to do here is to give mock trial master level rebuttals, championship level rebuttals. And for a championship level rebuttal, you need to stick to 1 point. Way too often, I see an attorney get up to give a rebuttal and they start talking about 10 different things. One of 2 results usually happens when an attorney tries to talk about all sorts of different stuff on their rebuttal. One thing is they simply run out of time, which is a horrible way to end the round. I mean, imagine you've just put on a powerful case, you've done all sorts of great things that I teach and that your coaches have helped you do, and you end it by getting stopped and running out of time. Like, what a terrible way to put a bow on everything. So that's one reason we don't want to talk about too much, but it also becomes distracting at that point. We want our rebuttal to be powerful. We want it to put a good bow on the case we just made. And if we start talking about too many different things, that bow either doesn't get put on, or if it does get put on, it's not a very powerful one. So stick to 1 point. Don't talk about the 4 things you remembered or the 3 things that you thought of while your other guy was or girl was up there giving their closing, right? None of that. 1 point on your rebuttal. Now, what should you choose as your 1 point? I'm glad you asked. That brings us into rule number 3. Rule number 3 for your rebuttal is that the 1 point you choose to make needs to be responsive to the other side's entire case, not just one specific part of it. This is another huge mistake I see competitors make a lot of times on their rebuttal. What they'll do is they'll let the other side, the defense, give their closing argument, and then they'll stand up and go in front of the jury and say, now, did you see how he was talking about the fact that the shirt was green? Well, don't you remember how earlier we talked about how the shirt was actually yellow? And that's a really important point because, and they just like laser hone in on this one fact, this 1 point, acting as though that whole point like makes their entire case. Well, here's the problem with that. It never does. A case, whether in real life or mock trial, never comes down to just one single point. And again, what we're trying to do with the rebuttal is put a powerful bow on the entire case. And we want to be responsive, don't get me wrong, right? That's really, really crucial in a rebuttal. You want to be responsive to the closing argument the defense just gave, but not just like one nitpicky, eensy-weensy part of it. You want to be responsive to the defense's case as a whole. So when you pick that 1 point you want to go in to make during your rebuttal, make sure it's a point that ties the whole case together for the defense and for you as the plaintiff or prosecution attorney. Don't nitpick, don't pick one little thing to beat a dead horse or to hammer down one last time. Again, pick a point that encapsulates the whole case, not just one little tiny part of it. Before we get into talking about rule number 4, the final rule for rebuttals, I want to let you know that my new book, Mock Trial Masterclass, is officially available on Amazon. Guys, if you're going into a tournament as an attorney and you want a playbook for how to succeed with excellence and win every single time, this is the book for you. Now, I'm not going to make any guarantees about the types of scores you're going to get or say that reading this book will let you win a championship, but what I can tell you is that I've been fortunate and blessed to win a lot of championships and have a lot of success in mock trial, and this book is the game plan I used to get there. And I want to share it with you, right? That's the whole reason I wrote this book. I didn't write this book to show off my skills or make you impressed by me, because who in the world cares about that? What I care about is you. I want you to succeed. I want you to win. And this is your plan. This is your path for doing so, whether you're an attorney or a witness in mock trial in high school or college or law school. So wherever you are, if you want to get better as an attorney, if you want a proven plan for success in winning championships in mock trial, this book is for you, and you can order a copy today on Amazon by clicking the link in the description on YouTube or in the show notes on podcast platforms. Final rule for rebuttals, you must end with your theme. Now, I have another video on my channel all about how to create a good theme for your side and your case. I'll leave the link to that in the description. But for now, just know that a good theme is a slogan of sorts that sums up the entire point of your case, the whole heart of the case that you're trying to make to the jury. And if you have a slogan, a theme, which by the way, you need to have in every single round that you compete in, you need to end with that. So when you're making your 1 point on your rebuttal and you're thinking about, okay, what's 1 point I can make that encapsulates the whole case like we talked about? Well, when you're thinking about how to do that, a great sort of filter to put your point through is, does it easily relate back to your theme? Because if you can use your 1 point that you come up with and very easily navigate into closing your rebuttal with your theme, then you probably picked a really, really good point. If the transition from the point you choose to make and your theme is a difficult one and you're kind of struggling in your head to see how they line up, you probably need to pick a different point, and chances are you've fallen into that trap we talked about earlier of the 1 point you choose on rebuttal being a little bit too specific. But whatever you do on rebuttal, you got to end with your theme, because again, the whole point of this, I've said it like 3 times now, is to end with a powerful bow on your case. And there's no more powerful bow you could possibly come up with than your theme. So again, I have great respect for everyone giving rebuttals in mock trial. I did my fair share of them when I was a competitor. It's really, really hard. It's not easy. And I know that it can be really, really stressful. So I hope the next time you go into a competition, even though you don't have a script for your rebuttal, because you can't, they need to be responsive, These 4 rules will give you a framework to be thinking really throughout the round, but especially throughout the defense closing argument about that one point you want to make and how you're going to tie it back to your theme. And if you do that, I promise you will put a powerful bow on your case and you will start to succeed in your rebuttals like a mock trial master.